Have you ever felt so small, so utterly erased by someone who once promised you the world? What happens when the person who broke you tries to humiliate you one last time in front of everyone, believing you are nothing without them? This is the story of Eleanor Vance, a woman pushed into the shadows by a cruel ex-husband who steps into the most elite gala of the year expecting a night of quiet endurance. She had no idea she was about to be at the center of a storm, a public spectacle that would end with a reclusive billionaire making an announcement that would not only shatter her ex's world, but redefine the very meaning of power, loyalty, and love. Stay tuned, because the greatest revenge is not loud. It is absolute. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday, nestled between a gallery catalog and a utility bill. It was thick, cream-colored cardstock, the kind of paper that felt unapologetically expensive. The embossed crest of the Sterling Foundation shimmered under the dim light of Eleanor Vance's small apartment. The name was a cruel irony, a ghost from a life that felt like it belonged to someone else. The Metropolitan Innovators Gala. A bitter laugh escaped her lips. Innovators. Richard Sterling, her ex-husband, had certainly been innovative in the ways he'd found to dismantle her piece by piece. For 12 years, she had been Eleanor Sterling, the brilliant, supportive wife of the rising tech mogul. She, an art historian with a doctorate from Columbia, had put her own career on hold to be his sounding board, his editor, his strategist. It was her idea, born from a late-night discussion about Renaissance patronage, that sparked the core concept for ConnectSphere, the social integration software that made Richard a titan of the industry. He called her his muse. Then, once the empire was built, the muse was discarded. The divorce had been a masterclass in public humiliation. Richard's lawyers painted her as a grasping, unambitious woman clinging to the coattails of his genius. He left her for Tiffany, a 22-year-old model and influencer, whose primary contribution to society was her curated Instagram feed. He kept the sprawling penthouse overlooking Central Park, the company, the friends, and the name. She was left with a modest settlement, enough to ensure she wouldn't starve, but small enough to be an insult and the hollowed-out shell of her former self. That was 3 years ago. Now at 38, Eleanor's life was quiet. She had shed the name Sterling, like a snake sheds its skin, reclaiming her maiden name, Vance. She worked as a senior researcher and acquisitions consultant for the Halcyon Gallery, a small but fiercely respected private art space in Soho. Her boss, a kindly older gentleman named Mr. Abernathy, valued her sharp eye and encyclopedic knowledge. It was a life of quiet dignity, a world away from the flashbulbs and fake smiles of her past. She was healing slowly. So why this invitation? Her eyes scanned the card. At the special request of our esteemed benefactor. The benefactor. For the past 6 months, the Halcyon Gallery had been transformed by an anonymous donor. This mysterious patron had been acquiring pieces of breathtaking significance, from a lost pre-Raphaelite study to a contemporary sculpture that had the art world buzzing. They communicated only through a law firm, their requests precise, their payments instantaneous. Mr. Abernathy had tasked Eleanor with being the sole point of contact, liaising with the lawyers, authenticating the pieces, and writing the provenance reports. She had never met the benefactor, never even heard their name, but she felt a strange kinship with them through their shared taste in art. It was their latest acquisition, a rare collection of sketches by Egon Schiele that was being loaned to the Metropolitan Museum for this very gala. He specifically requested you attend as the gallery's representative, Mr. Abernathy had told her that afternoon, his eyes twinkling. Said you were the only one who truly understood the collection's soul. Now, standing in her quiet apartment, surrounded by books instead of jewels, Eleanor felt a wave of pure dread. The gala was Richard's kingdom. It was the annual coronation where he showcased his success. Going there meant seeing him seeing her. It meant stepping back into the lion's den she had barely escaped with her life. Her phone buzzed. It was her best friend Chloe. "Did you get the invite to the Apocalypse Ball?" Chloe's voice was laced with its usual brand of loving sarcasm. "It's not funny, Chloe. I can't go." "Oh yes, you can. You are going to go, Ellie. You are going to walk into that museum with your head held so high it will create a draft. You are no longer Mrs. Sterling, the sad little wife. You are Eleanor Vance, the woman who can spot a forged Degas from 20 paces, and who is the personal art guru to some mysterious billionaire. This isn't his stage anymore. It's yours. Eleanor sank onto her small sofa, the invitation feeling like a lead weight in her hand. I don't have anything to wear, Chloe. My gala days are over. My wardrobe consists of sensible blouses and gallery-appropriate heels. Leave that to me, Chloe said, her voice suddenly conspiratorial. But I have a feeling your benefactor has already thought of that. Just say you'll go. For me. For you. Eleanor closed her eyes, picturing Richard's smug, handsome face. She pictured the pitying looks from their old friends, the whispers, the condescending smile of his new wife. The fear was a cold knot in her stomach, but beneath it a tiny, unfamiliar ember of defiance began to glow. Why should she hide? She had done nothing wrong. She had survived. Maybe Chloe was right. It wasn't about him. It was about her. Okay, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I'll go. She had no idea that this single word was not an end to her quiet life, but the beginning of a revolution. The week leading up to the gala was a torment of anxiety. Eleanor found herself staring into space during meetings, her heart pounding at the thought of the inevitable confrontation. She imagined Richard's cutting remarks, Tiffany's vacant, perfect smile, and the feeling of being an exhibit herself, judged and dismissed by the very people who used to toast her name. Chloe, true to her word, was a whirlwind of support. She insisted on a gala prep evening armed with wine, cheese, and a militant belief in Eleanor's worth. First rule, Chloe declared, pouring a generous glass of Sauvignon Blanc. We do not think of him. We think of you. What do you want to feel that night? Eleanor sighed, swirling the wine in her glass. Invisible, mostly. Wrong answer. Try again. Okay, Eleanor said, a small smile touching her lips. Poised, confident, like I belong there on my own terms? Better, Chloe nodded approvingly. Like the brilliant, sophisticated art historian you are, who is there to represent a priceless collection for a man of impeccable taste. The conversation was a balm, but the question of what to wear loomed large. Eleanor knew the fashion game of that world. It was a battlefield of couture, a language spoken in Chanel, Dior, and Valentino. Her simple, elegant wardrobe was no match. 2 days before the gala, the problem was solved in a way Eleanor could never have anticipated. A courier arrived at the Halcyon Gallery with a long, flat box from Atelier Valerius. Eleanor had never heard of the designer, but the box itself was a work of art wrapped in black silk paper and tied with a silver ribbon. Inside, resting on a bed of tissue, was a note in the same crisp, typed font as the benefactor's previous communications. Ms. Vance, a masterpiece deserves a worthy frame. Please accept this small token of appreciation for your exceptional work. It would be an honor if you would wear it on Saturday. Respectfully, the benefactor. Beneath the note was a gown that stole Eleanor's breath. It wasn't loud or ostentatious. It was a statement of quiet, devastating power. The dress was floor-length, cut from a liquid silk the color of a midnight sky. It had long, elegant sleeves, a high neckline, and a deceptively simple silhouette that flowed over the body rather than constricting it. The only embellishment was a cascade of tiny, hand-sewn silver beads along the spine, shimmering like a distant galaxy. It was the kind of dress that didn't scream for attention. It commanded it through sheer, unadulterated elegance. It was a dress for a queen, not a princess. Along with the dress was a smaller velvet box. Inside lay a pair of antique diamond and sapphire earrings reminiscent of Art Deco starlight and a matching delicate bracelet. They weren't massive vulgar stones. They were exquisite, tasteful, and worth more than her apartment. Eleanor felt a dizzying mix of shock and gratitude. This benefactor, this complete stranger, seemed to understand her better than the man she had been married to for 12 years. Richard had always bought her things that were fashionable, that reflected well on him. He'd once gifted her a gaudy diamond necklace that she hated calling it a CEO's wife necklace. This gift felt personal. It felt like armor. When she tried it on in her apartment that night with Chloe officiating, they both fell silent. The dress transformed her. It accentuated her slender frame, her graceful posture, and the intelligence in her deep blue eyes. It made her look not like Richard Sterling's forgotten ex-wife, but like Eleanor Vance, a woman of substance and mystery. "Ellie," Chloe whispered, her eyes wide. "Who is this benefactor, because I think I'm in love with him? That dress." "It's not just a dress. It's a message. It says, 'I am not to be trifled with.'" On the evening of the gala, as Eleanor looked at her reflection, she barely recognized the woman staring back. Chloe had arranged for a hairstylist and makeup artist who worked wonders. Her honey blonde hair was swept up into a chic, intricate chignon, and her makeup was subtle but striking, emphasizing her eyes and the elegant line of her jaw. As she fastened the sapphire earrings, the cold weight of the diamonds felt like a promise. A black town car, another courtesy of the benefactor, waited for her downstairs. As she slid into the plush leather interior, her heart hammered against her ribs. Fear was still there, a cold, familiar companion. But it was no longer the only thing she felt. Clad in her midnight silk armor, a flicker of something new ignited within her resolve. She was not going to the gala as a ghost. She was going as the custodian of the Sheila collection, as the gallery's chosen representative, and as the woman chosen by a man of immense taste and power, even if she didn't know his name. She was going as herself, and for the first time in a very long time, that felt like it might just be enough. The Metropolitan Museum of Art was transformed. The Great Hall, usually a cavern of echoing history, was now a glittering jewel box of human ambition. A symphony orchestra played softly from a balcony, their music a silken thread weaving through the champagne-fueled chatter of New York's elite. Tech billionaires mingled with politicians, fashion designers, air-kissed film stars, and everywhere diamonds glittered like captive stars. Eleanor stepped out of the car and onto the red carpet, her stomach a knot of tightly coiled snakes. The roar of the press was a physical force, a wall of shouting and flashing lights. She kept her eyes forward, her hand clutching the small, elegant clutch that had come with the dress. She gave her name to the check-in desk, Eleanor Vance, and the young woman's eyes widened slightly in recognition before she was waved through. Clearly the benefactor's guest was on a special list. She bypassed the main scrum heading for the quieter wing where the new exhibit was housed. She needed to ground herself to remember why she was there. The Sheila sketches were displayed in a beautifully lit, intimate gallery. Seeing them so raw and full of tormented genius calmed her. This was her world. The lines, the history, the human emotion captured on century-old paper. This was real. The circus in the Great Hall was the illusion. After a few minutes of composing herself, she knew she couldn't hide forever. Taking a deep breath, she accepted a glass of champagne from a passing waiter and forced herself to step into the throng. It didn't take long. She felt his presence before she saw him, a shift in the energy of the room. Richard Sterling always commanded attention. He stood near the base of the grand staircase, a circle of admirers hanging on his every word. He was devastatingly handsome in a custom Tom Ford tuxedo, his smile as bright and predatory as ever. And on his arm, dripping in a garish fire-engine red gown that screamed for attention, was Tiffany. Eleanor tried to turn to melt back towards the exhibit, but it was too late. One of Richard's sycophants, a venture capitalist named Marcus, spotted her. "Well, I'll be damned. Richard, look who it is." The circle turned. Richard's eyes scanned her, a flicker of surprise crossing his face before it settled into a mask of amused condescension. He let go of Tiffany's arm and sauntered towards Eleanor, his acolytes following like pilot fish on a shark. "Eleanor," he said, his voice loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "What a surprise. I didn't realize the museum had hired you. Are you on the catering staff tonight? You should have told me. I could have put in a good word." The laughter from his group was a spray of acid. Eleanor's face burned, but she held her chin high. The midnight silk of her dress felt like a shield. "Hello, Richard," she said. her voice cool and even, betraying none of the turmoil inside her. "I'm here as a guest." He smirked, looking her up and down. "A guest? Who'd you come with? Your little gallery boss? What's his name, Abernathy? Did he finally get a new suit?" Tiffany drifted over, her eyes vacant and assessing, flicking over Eleanor's dress. "Wow, that's a very simple dress, isn't it?" she said, her voice a girlish chirp that was meant to sound innocent but was honed to a razor's edge. "I almost didn't even see you." "It's Atelier Valerius," Eleanor replied calmly, naming the designer. Richard let out a bark of laughter. "Never heard of them. I guess that's what your budget allows for these days. It's tough, I get it. From Patek Philippe to, well, this." He gestured vaguely at her as if she were a piece of uninteresting furniture. Eleanor's blood ran cold. The cruelty was so casual, so practiced. This was the man who had once whispered that she was his whole world. "I'm here representing the Halcyon Gallery," she stated, trying to steer the conversation back to professional ground. "We're the facilitators for the Sheely collection loan." Richard's eyes lit up with malicious glee. He had found his angle. "Oh, that's right, the mystery benefactor collection. I heard about that. Some dusty old money trying to feel relevant. I assume," he said, waving his hand dismissively. "It's cute, Ellie. It really is. Playing with your little pictures in your little gallery. It's good to have a hobby. It must keep you busy while the real world is out here, innovating." He leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that was still loud enough for his circle to hear. "Listen, if things are tight, you don't have to put on a brave face. My foundation has a grant for, let's call it, underprivileged arts appreciation. I could probably have a check cut for your little gallery. A donation. Think of it as alimony part 2. That was it. The final deliberate twist of the knife. He wasn't just mocking her. He was trying to erase her, to frame her entire existence as a pathetic charity case epilogue to their grand story. He was painting her as a failure, a woman so worthless that her only value was as an object of his pity. Eleanor felt the floor drop out from beneath her. The champagne glass in her hand trembled. She opened her mouth to say something, anything, but the words wouldn't come. All the poise, all the confidence her armor had given her crumbled under the weight of his targeted cruelty. She was once again that small, broken woman in the lawyer's office listening to a list of her own inadequacies. His smirk widened. He had won. He had proven to himself and his audience that she was still nothing without him. He turned to his friends, ready to deliver a final punchline. "You see, some people just can't," but he never finished his sentence. A voice, quiet yet carrying the resonant authority of a thunderclap, cut through the air from behind Eleanor. "That's because Mr. Sterling," the voice said, "smooth as aged whiskey, Miss Vance is not here to appreciate art. She is here to curate a legacy. My legacy." The circle around Richard fell silent. Every head, including Eleanor's, turned towards the source of the voice. Standing there was a man who seemed to absorb the light around him rather than reflect it. He was tall and lean-dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit that was remarkable only for its understated perfection. His hair was dark with subtle threads of silver at the temples, and his face was all sharp angles and intelligent shadows. He wasn't handsome in the conventional polished way Richard was. He was compelling his presence, a gravity well that bent the room around him. His eyes, a startlingly pale gray, were fixed on Richard with an expression of profound disappointment, as if observing a particularly uninteresting insect. Eleanor recognized him instantly, though she had never seen him in person. She had seen his photograph only once in a highly restricted file Mr. Abernathy had shown her. Damian Blackwood. The name was a legend in the worlds of finance, technology, and private equity. He was a ghost, a myth. He owned a dozen corporations across multiple sectors, but his name was on none of them. He never gave interviews, was never photographed, and was rumored to be so reclusive he ran his multi-billion-dollar empire from a remote, undisclosed location. He was the ultimate power player because he had no interest in the fame that came with it. To see him here in the flesh was like seeing a unicorn walk into the room. Richard Sterling, for the first time all night, looked utterly speechless. His jaw worked, but no sound came out. Damian Blackwood took a step forward, his movements fluid and deliberate. He came to stand beside Eleanor, not touching her, but creating an undeniable barrier between her and Richard. His focus shifted from Richard to her, and the intensity in his pale eyes softened into something like concern. "Miss Vance," he said, his voice now a quiet murmur meant only for her. "I apologize. I was delayed. I trust you haven't been too bored by the company." Eleanor's mind was reeling. He was the benefactor, the man whose taste she admired, whose intellect she had felt across months of correspondence, was Damian Blackwood, the most enigmatic and powerful man in the city. She found her voice a shaky whisper. "Mr. Blackwood, I had no idea." "That was the arrangement," he said with a faint smile. "Anonymity can be efficient, but it seems some situations call for a more direct approach." His gaze flicked back to Richard, who had regained a fraction of his composure and was now puffing up his chest, trying to reclaim his dominance. "Blackwood," Richard said, forcing a bluff, hearty tone. "Didn't know you were in town." "Richard Sterling. Sterling Innovations." He stuck out his hand. Damian looked at the offered hand as if it were a soiled piece of garbage. He made no move to take it. "I know who you are, Mr. Sterling." The words were flat, devoid of any warmth. The unspoken addendum, "and I am not impressed," hung in the air. The public snub was brutal. Richard's hand dropped to his side, his face flushing a deep mottled red. His sycophants shuffled their feet suddenly, very interested in the ceiling architecture. Tiffany looked back and forth between the two men, her perfectly made-up face a mask of confusion. "You know, Eleanor?" Richard stammered, gesturing awkwardly between them. "Ms. Vance and I have been working together for some time," Damian said, his voice a low, dangerous purr. He finally turned his full attention back to Eleanor, effectively dismissing Richard and his entire entourage as if they had ceased to exist. "The Sheely exhibit is magnificent. Your notes on the provenance of number 7, the reclining woman, were particularly insightful. You identified a watermark from the Arches paper mill that every other expert had missed. It recontextualizes the entire period of his work from 1917. Eleanor stared at him dumbfounded. He was discussing the finer points of art history in the middle of a high-stakes social standoff. He wasn't just the money, he was an intellectual partner. He had read her work, understood it, and valued it. In that moment, surrounded by 100 of the city's most powerful people, he made her feel as if she were the only person in the room. The humiliation Richard had inflicted on her began to evaporate, replaced by a bewildering sense of validation. "Thank you, Mr. Blackwood," she managed to say. "I felt it was significant. It is more than significant." "It is brilliant," he stated as if it were an indisputable fact. He then offered her his arm. "Now, if you'll excuse us, Mr. Sterling, Ms. Vance and I have matters of actual innovation to discuss. I believe the museum curator is waiting for us." Without a backward glance, he guided Eleanor away from the stunned group. As they walked, a wave of whispers parted before them and closed in their wake. Eleanor could feel every eye in the great hall on them, on her. Richard Sterling was left standing by the staircase, his face a thunderous mask of fury and confusion. He had intended to make her a footnote in his story, a punchline to a joke. But a king had just stepped onto the chessboard and flipped the entire game. And Eleanor Vance, to her own profound shock, found herself standing right beside him. Walking through the Gala on Damian Blackwood's arm was a surreal experience. The sea of faces, which had seemed so threatening just moments before, now parted for them with a mixture of awe and frantic curiosity. People who had looked through Eleanor earlier now met her gaze with desperate fawning smiles. The power shift was palpable, a physical change in the atmosphere. Damian led her not towards the curator, but to a quiet, roped-off balcony that overlooked the Egyptian exhibit and the great temple of Dender. The noise of the party faded to a distant hum. The city lights glittered through the massive glass wall beyond the temple. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice losing its icy edge and becoming genuinely gentle. He released her arm, giving her space, but his pale gray eyes searched her face with concern. I think so," Eleanor stammered, her heart still beating a frantic rhythm. "I'm just stunned. You are the benefactor." "I am," he confirmed. "I apologize for the deception. I find my name often complicates things. People hear Blackwood and their behavior changes. I wanted your unbiased expertise, and I received it. It is, as I said, brilliant." "You saw what he did." She said the words, a quiet statement, not a question. The memory of Richard's cruelty was still a fresh wound. Damien's expression hardened. "I saw a small man attempting to diminish a woman he is incapable of understanding. It was distasteful." He leaned against the stone balustrade, his silhouette stark against the ancient temple. "I have been observing Richard Sterling for some time, Ms. Vance. Not for personal reasons, but for professional ones. His company is built on a foundation of sand and smoke. He is a master of promotion, not innovation, the kind of man who mistakes volume for value." There was a chilling finality in his tone, as if he were delivering a eulogy for a company that was still by all accounts on top of the world. "I want to thank you," Eleanor said, finding her footing. "Back there, you didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did," he replied simply. "Allowing mediocrity to insult brilliance is a cardinal sin. Besides," he added, a ghost of a smile playing on his lips, "he insulted my chief curator. I can't allow that." Eleanor's brow furrowed. "Your chief curator?" Before he could answer, the host of the evening, the director of the museum, appeared at the entrance to the balcony. "Mr. Blackwood." "There you are. We're ready for the announcement whenever you are." Damien nodded. "It's time." He turned back to Eleanor, his gaze steady and intense. "Stay here for a moment. I'll be right back for you." He walked back into the main hall. A hush fell over the crowd as he was led to the small stage set up on the grand staircase. Eleanor watched from the shadows of the balcony, her heart in her throat. What was he doing? Damien Blackwood took the microphone. His presence was so commanding that no one spoke. The silence was absolute. "Good evening," he began, his voice amplified throughout the cavernous space. "For years I have invested in the future, in algorithms, in biotech, in energy. We build things to make life more efficient. But I've come to believe that a future without a deep, abiding understanding of our past is a hollow one. A legacy is not just built with steel and code. It is built with beauty, with history, with the soul of human creation." He paused, his eyes scanning the crowd until they found Richard Sterling, who was standing trapped and exposed in the center of the room. "Tonight's gala is about innovation. But true innovation doesn't just look forward. It preserves the genius that came before. That is why I am announcing the formation of the Blackwood Foundation for the Arts. With an initial endowment of $5 billion, its sole purpose will be to acquire, preserve, and display the world's most significant cultural artifacts, making them accessible to everyone, not just the privileged." A collective gasp went through the audience. It was one of the largest philanthropic gestures in modern history. An institution of this magnitude cannot be run by a committee of financiers. Damien continued, his voice resonating with passion. "It requires a leader with a singular vision, an unparalleled eye, and an incorruptible dedication to the soul of the work. It requires someone who understands that a single brushstroke can hold more truth than 1,000 lines of code." He turned his head slightly, his gaze finding Eleanor on the balcony. He extended his hand towards her. "The foundation already has its first director and chief curator, a woman whose work I have admired from afar, and who I have had the great privilege of working with directly for the past several months. A woman who tonight was publicly insulted by a man who wouldn't know a masterpiece if it was hanging in his own home, which I can assure you it is not. The jab was so direct, so savage, that several people gasped. Richard Sterling turned the color of ash. "Ladies and gentlemen," Damien's voice boomed, "please join me in welcoming the director of the Blackwood Foundation, a woman of immense talent and integrity, Ms. Eleanor Vance." The world stopped. Time itself seemed to freeze. Every single eye in the room swiveled from Damien Blackwood to the woman standing on the balcony bathed in the soft light from the Egyptian hall. Numbly, Eleanor felt herself move as if pulled by an invisible string. She walked to the staircase, her legs unsteady. Damien met her at the top step, taking her hand. His grip was firm, warm, and grounding. He led her to the center of the stage, to his side. He turned back to the microphone, his arm moving possessively to rest on the small of her back. The crowd was a blur of shocked faces. Tiffany's mouth was hanging open. Richard looked like he had been physically struck. Damien Blackwood leaned into the microphone, his voice dropping to a confidential, almost intimate tone, yet it carried to every corner of the hall. Legacy, you see, is not a solo act. It requires a partner, a visionary, someone who is not just an accessory but the very core of the mission. He looked down at Eleanor, his pale eyes full of an emotion she couldn't dare to name. Then he looked back at the stunned audience and specifically at the broken man in the center of the room. "I am building a new empire, an empire of art and history. And make no mistake," he said, his voice ringing with absolute, indisputable power. "Eleanor Vance is not just its director, she is its queen." The silence that followed Damien's declaration was so profound, it felt like a physical object. It lasted for 3 long, drawn-out seconds before the room erupted. It wasn't just applause. It was a cacophony of frantic whispering, the clinking of hastily set-down glasses, and the low roar of 1,000 different realizations dawning at once. The world had just been rearranged, and Eleanor Vance was now at its epicenter. Flashbulbs, which had previously ignored her, now exploded in a blinding frenzy. The press, held back at the edges of the room, surged forward, their questions a chaotic chorus. "Ms. Vance, what is your vision for the foundation? Mr. Blackwood, are you and Ms. Vance partners professionally and personally?" Eleanor. Over here, Damien shielded her, his hand never leaving her back. He murmured something to a security guard who appeared as if from nowhere, and a path was cleared. He led her off the stage, not back to the party, but towards a private exit. As they passed the spot where Richard had been standing, Eleanor couldn't help but look. He was still there, frozen, his face a grotesque mask of disbelief and rage. His circle of sycophants had instinctively taken a step back from him as if he were suddenly radioactive. Tiffany was staring at Eleanor, her expression no longer smug, but filled with a dawning horror. She was looking at the woman her partner had called a worthless hobbyist, who was now being called a queen by a man 10 times more powerful and 100 times more respected than Richard would ever be. In that moment, Tiffany wasn't looking at a rival. She was looking at her own potential future. Richard's eyes met Eleanor's. The condescension was gone, replaced by a desperate, panicked confusion. He opened his mouth, taking a step toward her, his hand half raised as if to stop her, to demand an explanation. "Ellie! Wait!" Before he could take another step, Damien stopped and turned, positioning himself squarely between Richard and Eleanor. His face was devoid of all emotion, which was somehow more terrifying than any overt anger. "Mr. Sterling," Damien said, his voice dangerously soft, "you've already had your say tonight. I suggest you don't embarrass yourself further. You are no longer relevant to Ms. Vance's world." He paused, letting the words sink in. "Or to mine." With that final surgical dismissal, he guided Eleanor away, leaving Richard Sterling standing alone in the wreckage of his own arrogance. They were ushered into a private study deep within the museum's administrative wing. The heavy oak door closed, shutting out the clamor of the world. Eleanor finally let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Her entire body was trembling. "A $5 billion foundation," she whispered, sinking into a leather armchair. Director Queen Damien poured 2 glasses of water from a crystal carafe on the desk. He handed one to her, his fingers brushing hers. The endowment is real. The directorship is yours if you'll accept it. I meant every word I said about your talent. He took a seat opposite her. The Queen part was a moment of editorializing. My apologies if it made you uncomfortable. I found his possessive dismissal of you offensive. I wanted to make the new dynamic clear in a language he would understand. Clear is an understatement, she said, a shaky laugh escaping her. You detonated a bomb in the middle of the Great Hall. He built a glass house. Ms. Vance Damien replied, his gray eyes glinting. I merely pointed out the structural flaws. What happens next is simply physics. And the physics were brutal. Before they had even left the museum, Eleanor's phone, which she'd left in her clutch, began to vibrate incessantly. Emails, texts, alerts from news apps. The story was already breaking, spreading through the digital world like wildfire. Reclusive billionaire Damien Blackwood announces 5B Arts Foundation, appoints ex-wife of rival Richard Sterling as director. But the true twist, the final turn of the knife, came an hour later as they sat in the silent, moving cocoon of Damien's Rolls-Royce gliding through the sleeping city. A discreet ping came from Damien's phone. He glanced at it, a grim line touching his lips. It's begun, he said quietly. What's begun? Eleanor asked. I told you I was observing Sterling Innovations for professional reasons, he explained, turning to face her. For the past year, my primary tech company, Ethelred Technologies, has been in stealth mode developing a new generation of integrated business platforms. It's a quantum leap beyond anything currently on the market. We are officially announcing its launch at 9 a.m. tomorrow. It will make Sterling's Connect Sphere obsolete overnight. Eleanor stared at him, the pieces clicking into place with dizzying speed. But that's not all, Damien continued, his voice cold as steel. Connect Sphere's recent stock surge was based on their announcement of a massive new contract to provide data infrastructure for the city of Chicago. My legal team discovered 2 days ago that the contract was secured through bribery and back-channel deals. The evidence was submitted to the SEC and the Department of Justice this evening precisely at 10 p.m. He looked at his Patek Philippe watch. In approximately 8 hours, when the market opens, Sterling Innovations stock will be worthless. The board will call for Richard's immediate resignation. He'll be facing federal fraud charges. His assets will be frozen. Eleanor felt a wave of vertigo. This wasn't just a social takedown. It was a complete and utter annihilation. Richard hadn't just been humiliated. He had been erased. You planned this?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "I planned the business move," Damien corrected gently. "It has been in the works for years. The timing of the legal submission was a strategic decision. His public behavior tonight simply removed any lingering sympathy I might have had for him. He chose to make a spectacle. He misjudged his opponent. He misjudged you. The scale of it was terrifying, breathtaking. Richard had mocked her for her little gallery job, all while the man she was working for was quietly preparing to obliterate his entire world. He thought he was the king, never realizing he was just a pawn in a much larger game, a game he didn't even know was being played. Richard's cruelty hadn't been the cause of his downfall, but it had been the catalyst for its breathtakingly public and immediate nature. He had lit the match himself. The morning after the gala, Eleanor awoke to a world that was no longer her own. It felt as though the volume of her quiet life had been turned up to a deafening roar overnight. Her phone, which she'd silenced before falling into an exhausted sleep, was a dark, vibrating rectangle on her nightstand displaying 99+ notifications. A quick, hesitant glance revealed a maelstrom of texts, missed calls from numbers she didn't recognize, and news alerts from every major publication, all featuring her name alongside Damien's and Richard's. She sat up in bed, the borrowed silk dress from the night before pooled on a chair, a shimmering puddle of midnight. The woman she had been just 24 hours ago The quiet, unassuming art historian felt like a person from a past life. That woman worried about gallery budgets and whether she would have the strength to face her ex-husband. This new woman, the one staring back from the screen of her phone, was the mysterious curator, the woman at the center of the Blackwood bombshell, the queen to a new empire. It felt both terrifying and strangely powerfully liberating. The news of Richard's downfall was not just a story. It was a saga unfolding in brutal real time. News tickers reported that trading of Sterling Innovation stock had been halted pending an SEC announcement. Articles with grim headlines detailed the federal investigation into bribery and securities fraud. Financial analysts who had once sung Richard's praises now spoke of his company as a house of cards, a monument to hubris. The narrative was absolute. He wasn't a fallen giant. He was a fraud who had finally been exposed. Eleanor felt a strange detachment from it all. There was no surge of triumphant joy, no satisfying taste of revenge. There was only a quiet, profound sense of finality, like closing a very old, very heavy book. His spectacular implosion didn't bring her happiness, but it did bring her peace. The ghost that had haunted her for 3 years had finally been exorcised not by her own hand, but by the undeniable weight of his own actions. 2 days later, she walked into the Ethelred Technologies Tower for her first official meeting as director of the Blackwood Foundation. The building itself was a statement, a sleek, minimalist blade of glass and steel that seemed to disappear into the sky. Damien's office was on the top floor, a vast, airy space with panoramic views of the city. Yet the room wasn't dominated by the view. It was commanded by the art. A massive Gerhard Richter painting hung on one wall, a contemplative Rothko on another. It was a space that valued thought and beauty over mere corporate power. Damien was standing by the window when she entered, but he turned immediately. He was dressed not in a suit, but in a simple gray cashmere sweater and dark trousers. The formidable billionaire from the Gala was gone, replaced by the intense intellectual man she had come to know through his taste in art. "Eleanor?" he said, his voice warm. "Welcome." "Mr. Blackwood," she began, feeling a flicker of her old nervousness. "Damien," he corrected her gently. "I think we're past the formalities." He gestured to a large table where architectural blueprints were unrolled next to stacks of books and portfolios. "This is where we begin," he said. "I have the capital and the infrastructure. But the vision, the soul of the foundation, that comes from you. I want to hear everything, your wildest dreams. If you could build the perfect institution for the arts with no limitations, what would it look like?" For the next 4 hours, they didn't talk about Richard the Gala or the media storm. They talked about art. Eleanor, feeling her confidence swell with every word, laid out her vision. It wasn't just about a museum to house famous works. She spoke of an interactive educational wing for inner-city schools, a state-of-the-art conservation lab that would be a teaching facility for universities, a grant program for undiscovered artists, and a digital initiative to create virtual reality archives of lost or fragile historical sites. She spoke with a passion and authority that had been dormant for years, her hands sketching ideas on a notepad, her eyes alight with purpose. Damien listened, completely captivated. He didn't interrupt, only asking sharp, insightful questions that pushed her ideas further. He saw what Richard had never bothered to look for, the fierce, brilliant mind that had been there all along. In that room, high above the city, Eleanor wasn't a billionaire's new project or an ex-wife who'd gotten lucky. She was a visionary claiming her territory. Weeks turned into a season. Autumn bled into winter, and their partnership solidified into a seamless blend of the professional and the personal. They worked long hours, fueled by coffee and a shared obsessive drive. Their days were a whirlwind of meetings with architects, legal teams, and acquisitions experts. Their evenings were often spent in the hushed quiet of the Halcyon Gallery or Damien's private library, debating the merits of a recently surfaced collection of letters by Mary Cassatt, or the best way to light a Byzantine sculpture. The slow burn of their relationship was built in these small, unguarded moments. It was in the way he'd have her favorite tea waiting for her when she arrived in the morning, or the way she'd leave a rare book on his desk about the history of cartography, a subject she learned he was passionate about. It was in a shared, spontaneous laugh over a ridiculously pretentious art critic's review. One evening, while working late, a news report flashed on the television in the corner of the office. It was footage of Richard looking haggard and defeated, leaving a courthouse swarmed by reporters. Eleanor flinched, an involuntary reaction. Damien immediately picked up the remote and turned the screen off. He didn't say anything, but he met her eyes with a look of such profound understanding and quiet support that it said more than words ever could. In that moment of shared silence, an unspoken intimacy bloomed between them. It was Eleanor who found the building. After scouting dozens of locations, she discovered a derelict, forgotten warehouse on the Lower East Side slated for demolition. It was ugly and crumbling, but it had what she called good bones, soaring ceilings, vast open spaces, and a gritty, authentic history that resonated with the city itself. She spent a week drafting a comprehensive proposal complete with structural assessments and architectural sketches, and presented it to Damien not as a suggestion, but as a certainty. "This is it," she had said, her conviction absolute. "This is the home of the foundation." He had reviewed her detailed plan, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Then it's settled," was all he said. He trusted her vision completely, which led them to this crisp afternoon 6 months after the gala, standing on the rooftop of that very building. The demolition crews had been called off, replaced by architects and engineers. Below them, the city hummed a vibrant tapestry of life. The setting sun cast long golden rays that bathed the skyline in a warm, ethereal glow. "It's hard to believe," Eleanor said softly, her breath misting in the cool air, "that this time last year, my biggest professional challenge was authenticating a minor Monet." "And you were brilliant at it," Damien said, coming to stand beside her at the edge of the roof. Greatness is present in the small details before it's ever revealed on a grand stage. He looked out at the view, then turned his gaze to her, his pale eyes serious. "I never properly told you, Eleanor. That night, what I said on the stage. It wasn't a calculated move. It wasn't just a line designed to humiliate Sterling." He took her hands, his grip warm and firm. "When I saw him speaking to you that way, with such casual cruelty, I realized something. He wasn't just insulting his ex-wife. He was desecrating a masterpiece. He owned a treasure he was too blind to see, and his ego couldn't stand the thought of it shining in someone else's gallery. When I called you the queen of my new empire, I was simply stating the truth of what I had come to know over months of working with you. This foundation, these buildings, the money, the collections, they are just the kingdom. You are its heart, its conscience, its soul." Tears welled in Eleanor's eyes, but they were not tears of sadness or pain. They were tears of recognition. For so long she had felt like a ghost, a footnote in another person's story. But Damien had not only seen her, he had read every chapter. She thought of the woman she used to be, shrinking in Richard's shadow, and the woman she was now standing on the precipice of a future she was designing herself. She had walked into that gala as a survivor. She was leaving this rooftop as a founder. Richard had built an empire of smoke and ego designed to impress the world. Her empire, the one she was now building brick by brick with Damien, was an empire of light, beauty, and truth, a legacy meant to endure. She smiled, a genuine, radiant smile that felt like the sunrise. She squeezed his hands, her resolve as strong and clear as the city skyline before them. "Well then," she said, her voice full of hope and purpose, "we have an empire to build. Let's get to work." And so Eleanor's story isn't just about revenge. It's about reclamation. It proves that your worth is never determined by those who try to diminish you. Richard Sterling saw her as a reflection of his own success, but Damien Blackwood saw her for the brilliant light she was, all on her own. She didn't need a billionaire to save her. He simply provided the stage for a queen who was already waiting in the wings. Her real victory wasn't watching her ex-husband fall. It was in rising to build an empire of her own, one founded on her passion, her intellect, and her unbreakable spirit. What did you think of Eleanor's incredible journey? Was Damien's move an act of justice or a cold-blooded play for power? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If this story moved you, please hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and don't forget to subscribe for more tales of triumph and transformation. Your support helps us bring these powerful stories to light. Thank you for listening.
Imagine this: a successful, pregnant wife discovers a shocking text on her phone, unraveling a web of betrayal that turns her luxurious life into a nightmare of lies, bigamy, and deadly revenge. What if your best friend and husband were plotting against you for 2 decades, from San Francisco's elite circles to federal prisons and hidden threats? Betrayed when millionaire love turns deadly is a roller coaster of twists, heartbreak, and empowerment that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Stick around as I dive deep into this gripping story. You won't believe how it ends. If you're hooked already, smash that like button, drop a comment with your wildest betrayal story, share this with a friend who loves drama, and subscribe for more thrilling reviews. Let's get into it. The afternoon sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Dr. Sarah Chen's upscale obstetrics practice in San Francisco's Pacific Heights. Sophia Matthews adjusted her flowing Diane von Furstenberg maternity dress and smiled at the ultrasound image in her manicured hands. At 38, this pregnancy felt like a miracle, a second chance at motherhood after years of struggling to conceive. Her phone buzzed against the leather chair. A text message notification appeared on the screen, but it wasn't meant for her eyes. The message was addressed to her husband, Marcus, somehow delivered to her phone through their shared iCloud account. "Can't wait to see you tonight, darling. Same hotel room as always. Victoria." The ultrasound photos fluttered to the pristine white floor like fallen leaves. Sophia's perfectly applied makeup couldn't hide the color draining from her face as the reality of pregnant wife betrayed crashed over her like a tsunami. The baby monitor's gentle whooshing sound of her unborn daughter's heartbeat seemed to mock her as tears began streaming down her cheeks. Rain started pattering against the medical office windows, as if the universe itself was crying for her shattered dreams. She clutched her worn copy of Eat, Pray, Love, a 15th anniversary gift from Marcus just 6 months ago, when their millionaire marriage still seemed unbreakable. Dr. Chen knocked gently before entering. "Sophia, everything looks perfect with baby Emma. She's measuring exactly on track for 28 weeks. But nothing was perfect anymore. This heartbreaking family drama was just beginning to unfold, and Sophia's world of luxury affair scandals was about to consume everything she held dear. 20 minutes later, Sophia's hands trembled as she gripped the steering wheel of her Tesla Model S, navigating through San Francisco's foggy streets toward their Presidio Heights mansion. Her mind raced with questions she never thought she would ask. How long had Marcus been having an affair? Who was Victoria? And how could her husband betray their family just as they were preparing to welcome their daughter? The wrought iron gates of their circular driveway came into view, but Sophia's breath caught in her throat. A silver Porsche Cayenne sat in the space usually reserved for guests, its license plate reading Vic's car. Through the tall windows of their marble foyer, she could see 2 silhouettes locked in an intimate embrace. Marcus Matthews, her husband of 15 years and tech mogul worth $50 million, was kissing another woman in the exact spot where Sophia had announced her pregnancy 3 months earlier. The midlife betrayal story she never imagined becoming part of was now her devastating reality. Sophia's designer heels clicked against the imported Italian marble as she pushed through the heavy oak doors of their home. The sound echoed through the 2-story foyer like gunshots, causing the embracing couple to spring apart. Marcus turned first, his salt and pepper hair disheveled, his custom-made shirt partially unbuttoned. At 42, he still carried the confidence of a man who had built his tech empire from nothing, but guilt flickered across his steel gray eyes. The woman beside him was breathtakingly beautiful. Victoria Sterling stood with the poise of someone who had never doubted her place in the world. At 35, she possessed the kind of effortless elegance that had once made her Sophia's closest friend during their book club days in Marin County. "Sophia," Marcus stammered, straightening his shirt. "You're home early." "Victoria." Sophia's voice cracked with disbelief. "My book club friend Victoria, the woman who helped me plan Emma's nursery." Victoria's laugh was crystalline and cruel. "Oh, Sophia, you always were so naive. Did you really think Marcus married you for love? A tech mogul needs a proper wife for board meetings and charity galas? I've been his real love for 2 years." The words hit Sophia like physical blows. This was more than just husband affair with mistress. This was a calculated betrayal by someone she had trusted with her deepest fears about pregnancy at her age. Someone who had listened to her worries about feeling invisible in her marriage. Marcus stepped forward, reaching for Sophia's hands. "Sophia, please. This isn't what you think. I can explain everything." "Explain what?" Sophia's voice rose. "Explain how you've been living a double life while I've been growing your child. Explain how my best friend has been laughing at me behind my back for 2 years." Victoria examined her perfectly manicured nails with studied indifference. "Marcus was going to tell you after the baby was born. We didn't want to stress you during the pregnancy. We're not monsters." "Sophia." "Shri, not monsters." Sophia's laugh bordered on hysteria. "You're having an affair with my husband, and you think timing makes it better?" Marcus's face crumpled with what appeared to be genuine remorse. "Sophia, I made a terrible mistake. Victoria, she pursued me when I was going through that difficult period with the company 2 years ago. You were so focused on fertility treatments, and I felt alone. It started as friendship, and then you fell for her because she's younger and doesn't have stretch marks or morning sickness." Sophia's hand instinctively moved to her rounded belly. "No, that's not it at all." Marcus moved closer, his voice desperate. "Sophia, you're carrying my child. You're my wife. This thing with Victoria, it's over. Right now, I choose my family." Victoria's perfect composure slipped for just a moment, a flash of rage crossing her features before she regained control. "Of course, Marcus. Whatever you think is best." But as Victoria collected her purse from the marble console table, she whispered just loud enough for Sophia to hear, "You might want to check the guest bathroom upstairs. Sophia, I left something behind." After Victoria's Porsche disappeared through the gates, Marcus fell to his knees in front of Sophia, grasping her hands. "I'll do anything to make this right. Couples therapy. Whatever you need. I can't lose you and Emma." Sophia looked down at the man she had loved since she was 23, the man who had promised to cherish her through better and worse. But Victoria's parting words echoed in her mind. Against her better judgment, she climbed the curved staircase to their guest wing. The pregnancy test sat on the marble counter like a loaded weapon. 2 pink lines stared back at her, clear and undeniable. Victoria was pregnant too. Marcus's voice called from downstairs. "Sophia, where did you go? We need to talk about our future." Shututum. But standing in that pristine bathroom, holding evidence that her millionaire husband cheating had produced 2 pregnancies, Sophia realized their future had already been decided. The best friend mistress luxury affair scandals were about to destroy everything she had built over 15 years of marriage. The emergency room lights at UCSF Medical Center were harsh and unforgiving as Sophia lay on a hospital bed, fetal monitors strapped around her swollen belly. The stress of discovering Marcus's affair and Victoria's pregnancy had triggered contractions at 28 weeks, dangerously early for baby Emma. Dr. Sarah Chen moved efficiently around the bed, checking monitors and adjusting IV lines. "The contractions are slowing down, but we need to keep you here for observation. Stress can be incredibly dangerous during pregnancy. Sophia." Marcus paced beside the bed like a caged animal, his expensive suit wrinkled from hours of worry. Is the baby going to be okay? Is there anything I can do? The baby appears stable for now, Dr. Chen replied coolly. But Sophia needs complete rest and zero stress. That means addressing whatever caused this crisis. Through the hospital window, Sophia watched the fog roll over San Francisco Bay. The city looked peaceful from here, but her world was anything but calm. Her phone had been buzzing constantly with messages from her sister Maya in Chicago, offering support despite their estrangement over the years. I called Maya, Sophia said quietly. She's flying out tomorrow. Marcus stopped pacing. Maya, Sophia, we can handle this as a family. We don't need her interfering in our marriage. Our marriage? Sophia's laugh was bitter. Marcus, you're having a baby with another woman. I think Maya's interference is the least of our problems. A soft knock interrupted their conversation. Victoria Sterling stepped into the room carrying an enormous bouquet of white lilies, funeral flowers. Sophia realized with a chill. I came to apologize, Victoria said, her voice dripping with false concern. I never meant for you to find out this way, especially during your pregnancy. Dr. Chen's expression hardened. I'm sorry, but only family members are allowed in the maternity ward. Oh, but I am family now, Victoria smiled, placing one hand on her still flat stomach. Marcus and I are expecting two, due in February, just 3 months after little Emma. The fetal monitor began beeping more rapidly as Sophia's blood pressure spiked. Dr. Chen immediately moved to her side, checking the readings with growing concern. Everyone out, Dr. Chen ordered firmly. My patient needs rest, not more stress. But Victoria wasn't finished. As Marcus ushered her toward the door, she turned back to Sophia with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. You know, Sophia, Marcus has been so worried about you. He told me how difficult this pregnancy has been, how emotional you've become. He's concerned about your ability to handle motherhood at your age, especially with your family history of mental illness. My family history, Sophia's voice was barely a whisper. Your mother's breakdown after your father left, the depression that runs in your family. Marcus shared everything with me. He's worried that postpartum depression might be dangerous for you and the baby. The room spun around Sophia as Victoria's words sank in. Not only had Marcus betrayed her body and their marriage, but he had also shared her deepest vulnerabilities with his mistress. Every fear she had confided in him about her mother's struggles, every anxiety about becoming a mother in her late 30s. Victoria knew it all. After they left, Dr. Chen sat beside Sophia's bed. That woman is not your friend, and what she said about your mental health is completely inappropriate. Your pregnancy has been textbook normal, and there's no indication of any mental health concerns. Sophia wiped away tears she hadn't realized were falling. She knows things about my family, about my fears. Marcus told her everything. Then he's violated your trust in more ways than one, Dr. Chen said gently. But right now, we need to focus on keeping you and Emma healthy. Have you considered reaching out to a therapist not because there's anything wrong with you, but because you're dealing with an incredibly traumatic situation? That night, alone in her hospital bed, Sophia began writing in a journal that Dr. Chen had suggested. The therapeutic writing felt foreign at first, but slowly, words began flowing like a dam breaking. I gave up my interior design career for Marcus's ambitions. I moved across the country from my family. I endured years of fertility treatments while he built his empire. And for what? To be discarded for a younger model who was supposed to be my friend? The writing continued until dawn, and for the first time since discovering the affair, Sophia felt a spark of something besides despair. It might have been anger, or it might have been determination, but it was hers. When the morning nurse brought her discharge papers, Sophia's heart stopped. At the bottom of the insurance information, a red stamp declared, "Coverage terminated, premiums past due." The $45,000 emergency room bill was now her responsibility. Marcus hadn't just betrayed her emotionally, he had abandoned her financially when she needed him most. This wealth loss and infidelity was just beginning. and Sophia was about to discover exactly how deep her husband's deception ran. The Whole Foods in Pacific Heights had always been Sophia's sanctuary. The organic produce section, the artisanal cheeses, the friendly staff who knew her by name, it all represented the comfortable life she had built with Marcus. But as she stood at the checkout counter with prenatal vitamins and ingredients for the nursery, she was still hopefully preparing. Her Platinum American Express card was declined. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but this card has been rejected," the cashier said quietly, trying to preserve Sophia's dignity as other customers began to notice. Heat flooded Sophia's cheeks as she fumbled for her backup card. Also declined. Her personal checking account card. Declined. The realization hit her like a physical blow. Marcus had frozen all their joint accounts, leaving her financially stranded while 7 months pregnant. "I'll need to call my bank," Sophia murmured, abandoning her cart and walking quickly toward the exit. Several society women from their neighborhood watched with barely concealed curiosity. By evening, news of Sophia Matthews' financial difficulties would be spreading through their social circle like wildfire. In her Tesla, Sophia called Jennifer Walsh, her college roommate who had become one of San Francisco's most successful divorce attorneys. They had drifted apart over the years, but Jennifer had always told Sophia to call if she ever needed anything. "Sophia, my God, it's been too long." Jennifer's warm voice was exactly what Sophia needed to hear. "Jen, I need help. Marcus is having an affair, and I think he's trying to hide our assets." There was a pause. "Can you come to my office right now? And Sophia, don't sign anything. Don't agree to anything. And don't leave the state without telling me first." Jennifer's law office occupied an entire floor of a downtown high-rise, with stunning views of the Bay Bridge. Jennifer herself had changed dramatically since college. Her wild curls were now sleekly straightened, her bohemian style replaced by power suits and designer accessories. But her eyes still held the fierce loyalty that had made them inseparable friends 20 years ago. "Tell me everything," Jennifer said, pouring Sophia a cup of herbal tea. As Sophia recounted the affair, the pregnancy test, and the financial sabotage, Jennifer took detailed notes. Her expression grew increasingly grim as the story unfolded. "Sophia, this is worse than a simple affair. What Marcus is doing, freezing assets, canceling insurance while you're pregnant, this is financial abuse. And if he's hidden $30 million in offshore accounts like you suspect, we're looking at potential fraud." $30 million, Sophia's voice was weak. "I ran some preliminary searches on his company's filings. There are significant discrepancies between what he's reported as personal income and what's showing up in your joint assets. Either he's been hiding money for years, or he's been embezzling from his own company." The weight of pregnant wife financial betrayal and millionaire marriages settled over Sophia like a lead blanket. She had been so focused on building their family that she had completely ignored their finances, trusting Marcus to handle everything. "What are my options?" Sophia asked. "First, we file for temporary spousal support and child support. California is a community property state, so half of everything earned during your marriage belongs to you. Second, we get a forensic accountant to trace every dollar Marcus has moved in the past 5 years. Third, we prepare for war, because men like Marcus don't give up their money easily." That evening, Marcus returned to their mansion with flowers and takeout from Sophia's favorite restaurant. His attempt at normalcy felt grotesque given the circumstances. "I heard you had some trouble at Whole Foods today," he said carefully. "I'm sorry about the credit cards. It was a banking error. I've fixed everything." "A banking error?" Sophia's voice was dangerously calm. "Marcus, you canceled our health insurance while I was in the hospital. You froze accounts that pay for groceries and gas. That's not a banking error. That's financial warfare." Marcus set down the flowers and faced her directly. "Sophia, I know you're angry, and you have every right to be, but I'm trying to protect our family's assets during this difficult time. If you file for divorce, it could trigger a cascade of legal issues that could bankrupt us both. Bankrupt us or bankrupt you." Sophia pulled out her phone and showed him a text from Jennifer. Because according to my attorney, you've moved $30 million into accounts that I can't access. That's not protecting our family. That's protecting yourself. For the first time since she had known him, Marcus looked genuinely frightened. You hired Jennifer Walsh, Sophia. She's a shark. She'll destroy both of us to get her fees. Maybe I need a shark, Sophia replied, because apparently I've been swimming with one for 15 years without realizing it. Marcus sank into their leather sofa, suddenly looking older than his 42 years. Okay, you're right. I did move money, but not to hide it from you, to protect it from potential lawsuits. The company is facing some regulatory challenges, and I didn't want our personal assets at risk. What kind of regulatory challenges? SEC investigation. Nothing serious, just routine compliance issues. But lawyers are expensive, and I wanted to make sure Emma's college fund was protected. It sounded reasonable, almost noble. And Marcus was looking at her with the same earnest expression that had made her fall in love with him in graduate school. For a moment, Sophia felt her resolve wavering. If that's true, then you'll have no problem giving me access to those accounts and providing full financial disclosure to Jennifer. Of course, Marcus said immediately. And Sophia, I want you to know that Victoria and I were over, completely over. She was a mistake, a midlife crisis that I deeply regret. You and Emma are my priorities now. What about her pregnancy? Marcus's expression grew pained. We're handling that privately. She's agreed to, well, to handle the situation discreetly. There won't be another child to complicate our family. Relief flooded through Sophia despite herself. Maybe their luxury divorce due to mistress could be avoided. Maybe their marriage could survive this betrayal with proper therapy and self-discovery. Maybe Marcus really was choosing their family over his affair. I want couples counseling, Sophia said, and individual therapy for both of us, and complete financial transparency from now on. Done, Marcus agreed quickly. Anything you need. But as they embraced in their marble foyer, Sophia didn't see the text message that lit up Marcus's phone. Marriage completed in Vegas as planned. She suspects nothing. The false victory Sophia felt in that moment would soon crumble into dust, because the millionaire husband cheating asset division lessons she was about to learn would be far more devastating than anything she could imagine. Marcus and Victoria hadn't ended their affair. They had just made it legal. The revelation came 3 days later through a phone call from Jennifer that shattered Sophia's fragile hope like glass hitting concrete. Sophia, you need to sit down for this. Jennifer's voice was tight with controlled anger. I ran Marcus's name through the Clark County marriage records in Nevada. He married Victoria Sterling 2 weeks ago in a Las Vegas chapel while still legally married to you. The phone slipped from Sophia's fingers, clattering against the marble floor of their kitchen. Bigamy. The word echoed in her mind as she struggled to process the implications. Not only had Marcus been having an affair, but he had also committed a felony by marrying his mistress while still married to Sophia. That means, Sophia whispered, picking up the phone with trembling hands, our entire marriage might be legally questionable now. Not questionable, invalid in Nevada, which creates a massive legal nightmare for us in California. But here's the thing, Sophia, this might actually work in our favor. Bigamy is a felony, and it proves a pattern of deception that will play very well in family court. But before Sophia could respond, she heard the familiar sound of Marcus's Tesla pulling into their driveway. He's home, she said urgently. What do I do? Nothing. Act normal. Don't confront him about this yet. We need to document everything first. Get copies of all financial records and build an airtight case. The moment he knows we have this information, he'll start destroying evidence. Marcus entered the kitchen carrying groceries and wearing the same fake smile he had maintained for days. I thought I'd make dinner tonight. That pasta dish you love from our honeymoon in Tuscany. The irony of him mentioning their honeymoon while concealing his illegal second marriage was almost unbearable. Sophia forced herself to smile back. That sounds wonderful. As Marcus cooked, chatting about nursery preparations and baby names, Sophia felt like she was living in a psychological thriller. Every casual touch, every affectionate gesture, every mention of their future together was a lie built on top of other lies. Her phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Sarah Chen. Appointment reminder, prenatal checkup tomorrow at 2 p.m. Please bring partner if possible for baby's growth scan. Marcus, I have my appointment with Dr. Chen tomorrow. Can you come with me? Of course, he replied without hesitation. I wouldn't miss seeing Emma on the ultrasound. The next afternoon, sitting in Dr. Chen's waiting room, Sophia watched Marcus flip through parenting magazines and felt sick to her stomach. He was playing the devoted husband and father-to-be while maintaining a criminal secret that could send him to prison. Mr. and Mrs. Matthews, Dr. Chen's nurse called them back, but as they walked toward the examination room, Sophia froze. Victoria Sterling sat in the corner chair of the waiting room, reading a pregnancy magazine. She looked up and smiled at Marcus, not at Sophia, but at Marcus, with an expression of intimate familiarity. What is she doing here? Sophia demanded. Victoria stood gracefully, her hand resting on her still flat stomach. I'm here for my appointment. Of course, Dr. Chen comes highly recommended for high-risk pregnancies. High risk, Doctor. Chen appeared in the doorway, looking confused. Mrs. Matthews, who is this woman? This is Victoria Sterling, Marcus said quickly. She's a friend of ours who's also expecting. I may have mentioned Dr. Chen's excellent reputation. Dr. Chen's expression hardened. Ms. Sterling, I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. I'm not accepting new patients at this time, especially ones with potential conflicts of interest. Victoria's perfect composure cracked slightly. Conflicts of interest. When you called to make this appointment, you identified yourself as Mrs. Marcus Matthews. But Mrs. Matthews is standing right here, and she's been my patient for 8 months. The blood drained from Sophia's face as the implications hit her. Victoria wasn't just using Marcus's name casually. She was using it legally, as his wife. I think there's been a confusion with names, Marcus said desperately, but his face was pale with panic. Dr. Chen looked between the three of them with growing understanding and disgust. Mr. Matthews, I think you should leave. Both of you, she said, gesturing to Marcus and Victoria. Mrs. Matthews, my real patient, please come with me. In the privacy of the examination room, Dr. Chen's professional demeanor gave way to genuine concern. Sophia, what is going on? That woman tried to access your medical records by claiming to be Marcus's wife. She is Marcus's wife, Sophia said quietly. He married her in Las Vegas while still married to me. I just found out yesterday. Dr. Chen was silent for a long moment, processing the implications. Sophia, as your doctor, I need to tell you that this level of stress is dangerous for both you and Emma. Your blood pressure is elevated, and I'm seeing signs of preeclampsia that weren't there last week. Preeclampsia. It's a serious condition that can threaten both your life and the baby's life if it progresses. You need immediate bed rest, minimal stress, and careful monitoring. But even as Dr. Chen spoke about medical precautions, Sophia's mind was racing with the legal ramifications. If Marcus had committed bigamy, what other laws had he broken? And if Victoria had tried to access Sophia's medical records using fraudulent identification, what else was she capable of? The answer came that evening in the form of a process server at their front door. Marcus was being sued by his own company's board of directors for embezzlement and securities fraud. The SEC investigation he had dismissed as routine compliance issues was actually a full-scale criminal probe into missing investor funds. As Sophia read the court documents, she realized that her heartbreaking family drama was about to become a public spectacle. The wealthy tech mogul, his pregnant wife, and his bigamous marriage to her former best friend would be front-page news in the San Francisco Chronicle. But the worst was yet to come. As Marcus paced their living room, making frantic phone calls to his attorney, Sophia noticed a black sedan parked across the street. The paparazzi had found them. Her phone rang with an unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. Sophia Matthews. This is Rebecca Torres from the Chronicles Society page. We understand your husband has been charged with bigamy and embezzlement. Would you like to comment on how it feels to discover your marriage is invalid while you're carrying his child? Sophia hung up without responding. But the damage was done. By morning, their private tragedy would be public entertainment, and the midlife betrayal story she was living would become tabloid fodder for the entire Bay Area. Marcus appeared in the doorway, his face ashen. Sophia, I need to tell you something else. The board meeting is tomorrow, and they're voting to remove me as CEO. If that happens, our assets could be frozen pending the criminal investigation. What does that mean for Emma and me? It means, Marcus said quietly, that we might lose everything. Maya Rodriguez arrived at San Francisco International Airport like a force of nature. Her Chicago pragmatism and fierce protective instincts immediately evident as she embraced her younger sister in the baggage claim area. You look terrible, Maya said bluntly, studying Sophia's pale complexion and dark circles. At 42, Maya was 4 years older than Sophia and had always been the stronger one, the fighter who had put herself through law school while raising 2 teenagers after her divorce. I feel terrible, Sophia admitted, leading Maya to the Tesla that Marcus had forgotten to reclaim when he moved into a downtown hotel pending the criminal investigation. Good. You should feel terrible. Your husband committed bigamy and embezzlement. Your best friend turned out to be a sociopath, and you've been living in denial for months. But now I'm here, and we're going to fix this. Maya's direct approach was exactly what Sophia needed. While Marcus had always handled problems with corporate strategy and careful maneuvering, Maya attacked obstacles head-on with a tenacity that had made her one of Chicago's most successful family court mediators. First things first, Maya announced as they drove through the city. We're getting you out of that mausoleum you call a house. You can't heal in the same place where you were betrayed. But the nursery can be rebuilt anywhere. Your mental health can't. Maya's tone softened slightly. Sophia, you're 7 months pregnant with a potentially dangerous condition. Your husband is facing federal charges, and his mistress is stalking you. This isn't the time for sentimental attachment to Italian marble. They moved Sophia into a furnished apartment in the Marina District that afternoon, with Maya handling logistics while Sophia rested. Dr. Chen had been adamant about bed rest, but Maya interpreted that as rest from stress, not complete inactivity. We're building you a support system, Maya explained, unpacking boxes of Sophia's personal belongings. Starting with therapy, Dr. Rebecca Martinez came highly recommended by Dr. Chen as a specialist in betrayal trauma and perinatal mental health. Her office in Pacific Heights was warm and inviting, decorated with soft colors and comfortable furniture that immediately put Sophia at ease. Tell me about the last time you felt truly safe, Dr. Martinez asked during their first session. Sophia thought for a long moment. Before I found out about the affair, I thought I felt safe, but looking back, I think I was just comfortable in my denial. I ignored so many warning signs. What kind of warning signs? Marcus working late constantly, secretive phone calls, business trips that didn't quite add up. And Victoria, she was always asking about our marriage, our intimacy, our problems. I thought she was being a good friend, but she was gathering intelligence. Dr. Martinez nodded. Betrayal trauma is particularly devastating because it shatters our basic assumptions about trust and safety. You're not just grieving the end of your marriage, you're grieving the loss of your entire worldview. Meanwhile, Maya had been conducting her own investigation into Marcus's finances and Victoria's background. What she discovered was more disturbing than anyone had imagined. Victoria Sterling isn't even her real name, Maya announced over dinner at their favorite sushi restaurant in Japantown. She's Victoria Thornfield, daughter of a real estate mogul in Connecticut. She's worth about $20 million in her own right. She's rich, Sophia was confused. Then why would she target Marcus? That's what I'm trying to figure out. But here's the interesting part. She's done this before. Twice. She targeted married wealthy men, caused their divorces, and then disappeared with settlements from both the husbands and the wives. Sophia's chopsticks clattered against her plate. She's a professional marriage wrecker. It looks that way. And get this, both of her previous targets had pregnant wives. There's a pattern here. Sophia, this isn't about love or passion. This is about psychological manipulation and financial gain. The revelation that Victoria's pregnancy might be fake, a suspicion that had been growing in Sophia's mind, was confirmed by Maya's research into Victoria's medical history. Records showed a hysterectomy 3 years earlier, following cervical cancer treatment. "She can't be pregnant," Sophia whispered. "It's medically impossible." Which means the pregnancy test you found was planted. The appointments with Dr. Chen were theater. Even the morning sickness Marcus witnessed was probably acting. As the pieces of Victoria's elaborate deception fell into place, Sophia felt something she hadn't experienced in months: righteous anger. She had been played by a master manipulator who had studied her vulnerabilities and exploited them with surgical precision. "What do we do now?" Sophia asked. Maya smiled grimly. "Now we play offense. I've already contacted the district attorney's office with evidence of Victoria's fraud. And Jennifer is filing amended divorce papers that include charges of conspiracy and intentional infliction of emotional distress. But first, they had to address the immediate threat." Victoria had been escalating her harassment, showing up at places where Sophia shopped, following her to medical appointments, and even contacting Sophia's prenatal yoga instructor to ask about her emotional stability. The yoga studio in the Mission District had become Sophia's sanctuary, a place where other expectant mothers shared the universal experiences of pregnancy without judgment or drama. But even that peace was shattered when Victoria appeared at a Wednesday evening class. "I hope you don't mind," Victoria said to the instructor, unrolling a yoga mat next to Sophia's. "Marcus thought it would be good for both of his babies if we practiced together." The other women in the class sensed the tension immediately. Several of them had been following the scandal in the local newspapers, and they instinctively moved to form a protective circle around Sophia. "Actually," said Janet, a tech executive who was expecting her second child, "this is a private class for registered members only. You'll need to leave." Victoria's mask of false sweetness slipped entirely. "I don't think you understand who I am." "We understand exactly who you are," said another woman, Maria, who was a family court judge. "You're the woman who committed marriage fraud and is now stalking a pregnant woman. If you don't leave immediately, I'll have you arrested for harassment." The solidarity of these women, most of whom were strangers to Sophia, was overwhelming. They had closed ranks to protect one of their own without question or hesitation. It was female empowerment in its purest form, and it gave Sophia the strength she needed for what came next. After Victoria left, Janet approached Sophia with a business card. "I'm a forensic accountant specializing in corporate fraud. If you need help tracing your husband's hidden assets, call me. Pro bono." Maria handed Sophia her card as well. "Family court judge, 20 years on the bench. I can't give you legal advice, but I can tell you that judges don't look kindly on men who abandon pregnant wives to commit bigamy." As Sophia drove home to her Marina District apartment, she realized that losing Marcus and Victoria had actually freed her to find something more valuable. A community of strong women who understood that sometimes sisterhood meant going to war together. But the war was far from over. That night, Maya woke Sophia with urgent news that would change everything they thought they knew about Victoria's motivations. "I found her college records," Maya said, laptop open on the kitchen counter. "Victoria Thornfield and Sophia Matthews both attended Stanford during the same years. You knew each other in college. Sophia, she didn't randomly target you. This is personal." Sophia stared at the computer screen, trying to remember a woman she had apparently known 20 years ago. And slowly, like a photograph developing in a darkroom, the memory began to emerge. The memory hit Sophia like a physical blow as she stared at Victoria's college photograph on Maya's laptop screen. Stanford University, class of 2005. Victoria Thornfield, not Sterling, had been in Sophia's advanced psychology seminar during their junior year. "Oh my God," Sophia whispered, sinking into a kitchen chair. "I remember her now. She went by Tori back then. Tori Thornfield. What happened between you two?" Maya asked, scrolling through old university records. The memory was painful to resurrect. 20 years ago, Sophia had been dating James Hendricks, a popular economics major who was president of their academic honor society. Tori had become obsessed with James, showing up wherever he and Sophia went, insinuating herself into their social circle, and eventually spreading rumors that Sophia was cheating on him with their study group partner. "She destroyed my relationship with James," Sophia said slowly. "She fabricated evidence that I was having an affair, showed him fake text messages, even staged a scene where she claimed she had seen me with another man. James broke up with me without even giving me a chance to defend myself. And then she started dating James the next week, but it didn't last long. By senior year, he had figured out what she had done, and he tried to apologize to me, but I was already with Marcus by then." Sophia's voice trailed off as the implications became clear. "She's been planning this for 20 years. Maya's research had uncovered more disturbing details. After college, Victoria had systematically tracked Sophia's life through social media and public records. She had known about Sophia's fertility struggles, her career sacrifices, her insecurities about aging, and her distance from family. When Victoria moved to San Francisco 3 years ago, she had deliberately joined Sophia's book club and ingratiated herself into their social circle. "This isn't about Marcus," Maya realized. "He's just collateral damage. This is about you. She's been planning to destroy your life since college." The revelation recontextualized everything. Victoria's fake pregnancy, her knowledge of Sophia's family history, her ability to manipulate Marcus. It had all been carefully orchestrated psychological warfare designed to inflict maximum emotional damage. But Maya's discovery also provided them with powerful legal ammunition. Premeditated fraud across state lines and spanning multiple years elevated Victoria's crimes to federal racketeering charges. The FBI's white-collar crime division was already investigating Marcus's embezzlement. Now they had evidence of a broader conspiracy. The phone rang at 6 a.m. the next morning. Marcus's name appeared on the caller ID, but his voice was barely recognizable. "Sophia, I need to see you. Please. I know everything now. About Victoria, about college, about the fake pregnancy. I've been such a fool." They met at a neutral location, Jennifer's law office, with both attorneys present. Marcus looked like he had aged 10 years in the past month. His expensive suits had been replaced by off-the-rack clothing, and his confidence had evaporated entirely. "Victoria showed me the pregnancy test results," Marcus began, his voice hollow. "Medical records, ultrasound images, everything. I believed her completely. She was so convincing, so detailed in her deception." "When did you realize she was lying?" Sophia asked. "Yesterday. My lawyer received a copy of her medical records as part of the discovery process. Hysterectomy 3 years ago. She can't have children. Sophia, she never could." Marcus broke down completely, tears streaming down his face as he recounted how Victoria had manipulated him with fake medical emergencies, emotional manipulation, and elaborate lies about loving him since college. "She told me she had always regretted not telling me how she felt at Stanford," Marcus continued. "She said she had watched me date you and had been heartbroken, but she had been too shy to compete. She made it seem like destiny that we had reconnected after all these years. So you committed bigamy for a woman you thought was carrying your child and had loved you since college?" Jennifer's voice was ice cold. "I thought I was in love," Marcus said desperately. "She made me believe that my marriage to Sophia was just settling, that I had missed my chance at true love. When she said she was pregnant, it felt like a sign that we were meant to be together." Sophia watched her husband's breakdown with a mixture of pity and disgust. Even now, even knowing he had been manipulated, Marcus was asking her to forgive him for believing another woman's lies over 15 years of marriage. "What do you want from me?" "Marcus," Sophia asked. "I want to make this right. I want to be a father to Emma. I want to earn back your trust and rebuild our family." "Our family?" Sophia's laugh was bitter. "Marcus, you're facing federal charges for embezzlement and bigamy. You've hidden our assets in offshore accounts that I can't access. You've destroyed my reputation, my security, and my ability to trust anyone. What family are you talking about?" "I can fix the money problems," Marcus said urgently. "The offshore accounts, the frozen assets. I can make you whole again. More than whole. You'll never have to worry about money." Jennifer leaned forward. "What exactly are you proposing? Full financial disclosure? Complete asset transfer to Sophia? I'll plead guilty to the charges and serve whatever sentence they give me. But I want to ensure that Sophia and Emma are provided for." It was exactly what Sophia had dreamed of hearing a month ago. Financial security, acknowledgement of wrongdoing, and a path forward that protected her daughter's future. But sitting in that conference room, listening to Marcus negotiate their relationship like a business deal, she realized something had fundamentally changed inside her. "I don't want your money, Marcus," she said quietly. "I want my daughter to grow up with a father who has integrity, who keeps his promises, and who values truth over convenience. You're not that man anymore. Maybe you never were." Marcus's face crumpled. "Sophia, please. I made terrible mistakes. But I love you. I love Emma. I can change. You had an affair with a woman who was systematically destroying my mental health. You committed felonies to be with her. You abandoned me financially while I was carrying your child. And even now, your solution is to throw money at the problem instead of doing the actual work of becoming a better person." Dr. Martinez had helped Sophia understand that forgiveness didn't require reconciliation. She could forgive Marcus for her own healing while still protecting herself and Emma from further harm. "I want you to be Emma's father," Sophia continued. "But I want you to be a better father than you were a husband. That means taking responsibility for your choices, serving your sentence with dignity, and proving through actions, not words, that you're worthy of her respect." The meeting ended with temporary custody arrangements that would allow Marcus supervised visitations once Emma was born. Sophia would receive the primary residence, sufficient spousal support, and Emma's college fund would be protected in an irrevocable trust. But as they prepared to leave, Jennifer's phone rang with news that changed everything. "Victoria's been arrested," Jennifer announced. "FBI picked her up this morning at SFO trying to board a flight to Switzerland. Apparently, she's been transferring money from multiple victims to European accounts for years." Marcus went white. "Multiple victims." "The federal investigation found 5 other men she's defrauded using similar methods. You're not her first mark. Marcus, you're just her most recent and most profitable." The revelation that Marcus wasn't special, that he was just another mark in Victoria's long con, seemed to devastate him more than losing his fortune or facing prison time. He had risked everything for a woman who had never cared about him at all. But for Sophia, Victoria's arrest felt like the first step toward justice. The woman who had spent 20 years planning her revenge was finally going to face consequences for her actions. That evening, as Sophia prepared for Emma's arrival in just 4 weeks, her phone rang with an unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. "Hello, Sophia." Victoria's voice was eerily calm despite calling from federal detention. "I hear you figured out our little history together. How are you calling me from jail? Phone privileges, darling. And I wanted you to know that even though my current plan didn't work out perfectly, I'm far from finished with you. 20 years I've waited for this, and a little setback isn't going to stop me now." The line went dead, leaving Sophia with a chill that had nothing to do with the San Francisco fog rolling in from the bay. Victoria might be in custody, but her obsession with revenge was far from over. Emma's birth was both beautiful and terrifying, a new beginning shadowed by the knowledge that dangerous enemies were still plotting in the darkness. Emma Rose Matthews entered the world on a foggy Tuesday morning in October, her tiny fist wrapped around Sophia's finger as if she understood that they would need to face the world together. The delivery had been complicated by Sophia's stress-induced preeclampsia, but Dr. Chen's expert care had ensured both mother and daughter were healthy. Marcus was allowed to attend the birth despite their separation, and for a brief moment in that hospital room, Sophia almost believed they could find their way back to each other. He cried when he held Emma for the first time, whispering promises about being a better man and a worthy father. "She's perfect," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Sophia, look what we created together." But the tenderness of that moment was shattered when Sophia overheard a phone conversation Marcus thought was private. While she dozed in the recovery room, exhausted from 18 hours of labor, Marcus stepped into the hallway to take a call. "No, Victoria, I can't leave her now," his voice carried through the partially open door. "She just gave birth to my daughter. Give me 6 months to secure custody arrangements, and then we can discuss our future." The betrayal hit Sophia like ice water. Even now, even after everything they had learned about Victoria's manipulation and criminal behavior, Marcus was still planning a future with her. His reconciliation with Sophia was just another strategy to gain leverage in custody court. Maya, who had been dozing in the visitor's chair, saw Sophia's face and immediately understood. "What did you hear?" "He's still planning to be with Victoria," Sophia whispered, careful not to wake Emma. "This whole remorseful husband act is just to help him get custody." "That son of a bitch," Maya said quietly but with venom. "We're not going to let him manipulate you anymore." The next morning, as Sophia prepared to take Emma home to their Marina District apartment, Dr. Chen pulled her aside for a private conversation. "Sophia, I need to share something with you that's medically relevant, but also concerning from a legal standpoint. Marcus requested copies of all your medical records from your pregnancy, including psychological evaluations and notes about your stress levels." "He what?" "His attorney sent a formal request claiming they needed the records for insurance purposes. But given your custody situation, I'm worried they might be building a case to claim you're mentally unstable." Dr. Chen's concerns proved prescient. Within a week of Emma's birth, Marcus's legal team filed motions claiming that Sophia was suffering from severe postpartum depression that made her a danger to their daughter. They cited her emotional instability during the pregnancy, her paranoid behavior regarding Victoria, and her inability to maintain stable housing as evidence that Emma should be placed in Marcus's primary custody. The accusations were both false and devastating. Sophia's temporary move to the Marina apartment was characterized as housing instability rather than protective relocation. Her appropriate emotional responses to betrayal and fraud were labeled as mental illness. Even her decision to seek therapy was twisted into evidence of psychological problems. "This is textbook parental alienation tactics," Jennifer explained during an emergency meeting. "They're trying to weaponize your natural responses to trauma against you in custody court." But the most painful betrayal came from an unexpected source. Dr. Rebecca Martinez, Sophia's therapist, had been subpoenaed to testify about Sophia's mental health. While doctor-patient privilege protected the content of their sessions, Marcus's attorneys were arguing that the mere fact of therapy proved Sophia was unfit for custody. "I won't testify against you," Dr. Martinez assured Sophia, "but I want you to be prepared for them to question your judgment and emotional stability." The custody hearing was scheduled for December, just 2 months after Emma's birth. In the meantime, Marcus was granted supervised visitation rights 3 times a week, with a court-appointed monitor present during each visit. The visitations were torture for Sophia. Watching Marcus hold Emma, seeing his genuine love for their daughter, made it harder to maintain her resolve about ending their marriage. And Marcus, sensing her vulnerability, used every moment to try to win her back. "Look how happy she is with both of us here," he would say during handoffs. "Emma needs both her parents together. We could be a family again. Sophia, we could start over." But Maya had been conducting her own investigation into Marcus's claims of reformation. What she discovered was more devastating than his original betrayal. He's been visiting Victoria in federal detention, Maya announced during one of their evening conversations. 3 times a week, every week since she was arrested. Sophia's blood ran cold. He's visiting her in jail. More than that, he's been putting money in her commissary account, paying for her legal fees, and according to the visitor logs, sometimes staying for the maximum allowed visiting time. The evidence of Marcus's continued relationship with Victoria was irrefutable, but it also provided Sophia with the ammunition she needed for the custody hearing. No judge would award primary custody to a man who was supporting his criminal co-conspirator while claiming to have reformed. But Victoria wasn't finished with her campaign of psychological warfare. Even from federal detention, she had been orchestrating a final assault on Sophia's mental health and maternal fitness. The attack came through Emma's pediatrician, Dr. James Walsh, a kind and competent physician who had been treating Emma since birth. Victoria had somehow obtained his contact information and had been calling his office claiming to be Marcus's wife and Emma's stepmother. She's been asking detailed questions about Emma's health, requesting copies of medical records, and even suggesting that you might be neglecting the baby's care. Dr. Walsh explained during what he thought would be a routine checkup. "She's not Marcus's wife," Sophia said firmly. "She's a convicted criminal who's been stalking our family." Dr. Walsh's expression grew concerned. "Mrs. Matthews, I need to document this conversation for Emma's protection. If there's a custody dispute involving false identity claims and potential child endangerment, I'm required to report it to Child Protective Services." The words hit Sophia like a physical blow. Victoria's manipulation had now triggered a CPS investigation that could result in Emma being removed from her care entirely. The systemic betrayal was complete. Everyone from Marcus to the legal system to the medical establishment was being turned against her by a master manipulator who understood exactly how to exploit institutional biases against single mothers. That night, alone in her apartment, with Emma sleeping in the crib beside her bed, Sophia felt the weight of complete powerlessness. She had lost her husband, her home, her financial security, and now potentially her daughter. Victoria's 20-year campaign of revenge was succeeding beyond her wildest dreams. But as she watched Emma's peaceful breathing, Sophia felt something stronger than despair rising within her. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about protecting her daughter from the toxic legacy of deception and manipulation that had defined Sophia's marriage. The phone rang at midnight. Marcus's name appeared on the caller ID. "Sophia, I need to tell you something." His voice was different, urgent, and frightened. "Victoria's not who we think she is. I found something in her belongings that changes everything." "What are you talking about?" "Marcus. She's been documenting everything. Photos, recordings, detailed notes about how to destroy you. It's not just revenge from college. She's been planning this specific outcome for years. And there's more. She's pregnant. Sophia, not by me, but she is actually pregnant this time." The news that Victoria had been lying about her pregnancy was almost too much to process. But before Sophia could respond, she heard Victoria's voice in the background of Marcus's call. "Hello, Sophia," Victoria said, somehow having gained access to Marcus's phone. "Miss me?" The realization that Victoria was no longer in federal detention, that she was free and with Marcus, sent ice through Sophia's veins. Emma stirred in her crib, and Sophia's maternal instincts kicked into high gear. "How did you get out of jail?" Sophia demanded. "Technicality." Victoria's laugh was crystalline and cruel. "Improper search warrant. All charges dropped. I'm a free woman, and I have so much catching up to do." The line went dead, leaving Sophia with the terrifying knowledge that her most dangerous enemy was no longer contained. Victoria was free, vindictive, and apparently carrying someone else's child, which meant her psychological instability had reached new heights. Sophia called 911, but what could she report? No crimes had been committed in the phone call. No specific threats had been made, and Victoria had every legal right to be with Marcus if she chose. The system that was supposed to protect mothers and children had failed completely. As she held Emma close, Sophia realized that the custody war wasn't just about legal proceedings anymore. It was about survival, and she was going to have to fight harder and smarter than she ever had before to protect her daughter from the forces of manipulation and revenge that were closing in around them. The vindication Sophia had been fighting for arrived through an unexpected source, Marcus himself. 3 weeks after Victoria's release from detention, he appeared at Sophia's apartment at dawn, disheveled and clearly frightened, carrying a laptop bag and manila envelope that would change everything. "She's completely insane," Marcus said without preamble, as Sophia reluctantly led him into her living room. Emma was sleeping in her bouncer, and Sophia was protective of any disruption to their morning routine. "What happened?" "Marcus, I found her files, everything she's been planning, not just against you, but against me too. Sophia, she never loved either of us. This whole thing was just an elaborate con to steal money and destroy lives for entertainment." Marcus opened the laptop and showed Sophia a folder labeled Project Sophia that contained hundreds of documents, photos, and recordings spanning 20 years. Victoria had been documenting Sophia's life with the methodical precision of a stalker, noting everything from her career choices to her fertility struggles to her favorite restaurants. "Look at this," Marcus said, clicking on a document titled Psychological Profile, Target Subject. It was a detailed analysis of Sophia's personality, vulnerabilities, and triggers, written with clinical detachment and obvious malicious intent. The profile noted Sophia's excessive need for approval, her abandonment fears stemming from father's absence, and her competitive insecurity regarding younger women. Victoria had crafted her entire approach based on exploiting these specific psychological weaknesses. "She's been planning this for decades," Sophia whispered, scrolling through timeline documents that showed Victoria had been tracking Sophia's relationship with Marcus from their very first date in graduate school. "There's more," Marcus said grimly. "She's done this to 4 other women, the same pattern every time. Befriend the wife, seduce the husband, destroy the family, take the money, and disappear. We weren't special, Sophia. We were just marks in a very profitable psychological game." The evidence was overwhelming and damning. Victoria had recorded conversations with Marcus where she laughed about Sophia's pathetic desperation and made cruel jokes about her pregnancy weight gain. She had screenshots of fake social media accounts she had used to spread rumors about Sophia's mental health among their mutual friends. Most disturbingly, she had detailed plans for her next phase of psychological warfare against Sophia, including strategies to manipulate the custody hearing, turn Emma against her mother as she grew older, and potentially arrange for accidents that would leave Sophia injured or discredited. "Why are you showing me this now?" Sophia asked. "Because she's planning to kill you," Marcus said bluntly. "Not immediately, not obviously, but she has detailed plans for making your death look like suicide brought on by postpartum depression and custody stress. She's been researching methods and establishing a documented history of your mental instability to make it believable." Sophia's blood ran cold as she read Victoria's notes about staged accidents and psychological pressure points that could trigger self-harm. The woman had been planning murder while pretending to seek revenge for a college boyfriend. "How did you get these files?" "She left her laptop open when she went out yesterday. I think she wanted me to find them." "Sophia, I think this is all part of her game. She gets off on the psychological torture, and watching people discover how thoroughly they've been manipulated gives her pleasure." Marcus's assessment proved accurate when Sophia's phone rang with a call from Victoria herself. "I assume Marcus has shown you my research by now." Victoria's voice was eerily calm. "Impressive work. Don't you think 20 years of planning, and it's all coming together so beautifully?" "You're sick," Sophia said, putting the call on speaker so Marcus could hear. "I'm methodical. There's a difference. You destroyed my relationship with James, and I've dedicated my life to returning the favor with interest. The affair, the bigamy, the custody battle. All of that was just foreplay. The real fun is about to begin." What do you want? I want you to suffer the way I suffered. I want you to lose everything and everyone you love, slowly and painfully, until you understand what you did to me in college. Sophia was genuinely confused. Victoria, I never destroyed your relationship with James. You were the one who, liar. Victoria's composure cracked, revealing the rage underneath. You poisoned him against me. You made him think I was crazy and desperate. You turned everyone against me until I had to leave Stanford. The conversation revealed the depth of Victoria's delusion. In her mind, she was the victim of Sophia's malicious behavior, not the perpetrator of a 20-year campaign of revenge based on fabricated grievances. Victoria, you're remembering things that didn't happen, Sophia said gently. I never tried to hurt you in college. I barely knew you. Don't you dare try to gaslight me now, Victoria screamed. I have documentation of everything you did. Every cruel comment, every social exclusion, every attempt to humiliate me. As Victoria ranted, Marcus frantically gestured to Sophia to keep her talking while he called 911 on his own phone. The police were already aware of Victoria's criminal history and the restraining order Sophia had filed, but hearing direct threats would give them grounds for immediate arrest. Where are you now, Victoria? Sophia asked, trying to keep her voice calm while Emma began stirring in her bouncer. Closer than you think, Victoria replied with a laugh that sent chills down Sophia's spine. I've been watching you for weeks, learning your routines, figuring out the best time to make my move. The call ended abruptly, leaving Sophia and Marcus staring at each other in terror. Within minutes, police sirens were wailing outside the apartment building, but they were too late. Victoria had vanished again, leaving behind only digital evidence of her plans and the promise of future violence. The FBI reopened their investigation with new urgency, classifying Victoria as a dangerous fugitive with a history of interstate crimes and credible threats of violence. Sophia and Emma were placed in protective custody while federal marshals coordinated a multi-state manhunt. But Victoria's arrest came from an unexpected source. She had been so focused on her revenge against Sophia that she had ignored her other victims, including James Hendricks, the college boyfriend whose rejection had started her decades-long spiral into criminal behavior. James had become a successful prosecutor in Los Angeles and had been quietly investigating Victoria's crimes for years after other victims had reached out to him. When news of her latest scheme became public, he coordinated with federal authorities to track her through financial records and surveillance footage. Victoria was arrested at a plastic surgery clinic in Mexico, where she had been attempting to alter her appearance before fleeing to a non-extradition country. She was found with detailed plans for Emma's kidnapping, Sophia's murder, and Marcus's financial destruction, evidence that ensured she would never be released again. The trial became a media sensation, with journalists dubbing Victoria the Black Widow of Silicon Valley and exploring the psychology of long-term revenge plots. Sophia testified about the 20-year campaign of harassment and manipulation, helping prosecutors establish a pattern of predatory behavior that dated back to college. Marcus also testified, admitting his role in enabling Victoria's crimes and taking full responsibility for his betrayal of their marriage. His cooperation with authorities resulted in reduced charges for his financial crimes, but he still faced significant prison time for embezzlement and bigamy. I fell in love with a fantasy, Marcus said during his victim impact statement. Victoria created a false persona designed to exploit my midlife insecurities and my guilt about neglecting my marriage. But my actions were still my choice, and I take full responsibility for the pain I caused. Victoria was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison without possibility of parole, ensuring that she would never again have the opportunity to destroy innocent families. Her conviction also triggered civil lawsuits from her previous victims, who recovered millions of dollars in damages from her hidden assets. For Sophia, the end of the legal proceedings felt like emerging from a long nightmare. Emma was now 8 months old, a happy and healthy baby who would never remember the chaos that had surrounded her birth. The custody issues were resolved in Sophia's favor, with Marcus receiving supervised visitation rights that would continue after his release from prison. You did it, Maya said as they left the courthouse after Victoria's sentencing. You protected Emma. You exposed a dangerous criminal. And you survived something that would have destroyed most people. But Sophia's victory felt incomplete. She had won the legal battle and secured Emma's safety. But the emotional scars of betrayal would take years to heal. The woman she had been before discovering Marcus's affair, trusting, optimistic, and secure in her place in the world, was gone forever. Dr. Martinez helped Sophia understand that this loss was part of the healing process. You're not trying to get back to who you were, she explained. You're becoming someone stronger, wiser, and more authentic. The transformation was evident in Sophia's decision to return to interior design, starting her own firm that specialized in creating safe, beautiful spaces for women and children recovering from domestic trauma. Her first client was a shelter for abused women, and the project reconnected her with her creative passion while serving a meaningful cause. Emma's first birthday party was a celebration of survival and new beginnings, held in the garden of their new home overlooking the Pacific Ocean. It was attended by the strong women who had helped them through the darkest period of their lives: Maya, Dr. Chen, Dr. Martinez, Jennifer, and the yoga mothers who had become Sophia's chosen family. Marcus attended briefly, bringing a handcrafted wooden toy he had made in prison workshop. His relationship with Emma was limited but loving, and he was determined to be the father she deserved despite his mistakes. I'm proud of you, he told Sophia as he prepared to return to federal custody. You became the woman I always knew you could be. But as the guests departed and Sophia was cleaning up party decorations, she found an envelope that hadn't been there before. Inside was a photograph of Victoria in prison stripes with a message written on the back. This isn't over. I have friends on the outside who remember what you did to me. The threat was almost certainly empty. Victoria was in maximum security prison with no possibility of parole. But it served as a reminder that some wounds never fully heal. Evil doesn't disappear when it's defeated. It just finds new ways to manifest. Sophia looked at Emma, who was playing happily with her new toys, completely unaware of the darkness that had tried to consume their family. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, stronger for having survived the worst that betrayal and revenge could inflict. The midlife betrayal story that had almost destroyed her had become a testament to resilience, female empowerment, and the power of choosing love over fear. But in the back of her mind, Sophia knew that Victoria's obsession with revenge might outlast even prison walls. And someday, Emma might need to understand the full truth about the woman who had tried to destroy their family before she was even born. 2 years after Victoria's conviction, Sophia's life had found a rhythm of healing and hope. Emma was a delightful toddler with Marcus's curious intelligence and Sophia's artistic sensibility, bringing joy to their oceanside home in Half Moon Bay. The house was modest compared to the Pacific Heights mansion, but it was truly theirs. Purchased with proceeds from Sophia's thriving interior design business and free from the taint of Marcus's criminal enterprise, the business had grown beyond Sophia's wildest expectations. Sanctuary spaces specialized in designing safe, beautiful environments for women and children recovering from trauma, and had attracted clients throughout California. The work was emotionally demanding but deeply fulfilling, allowing Sophia to transform her own healing journey into a service for others. Maya had relocated to San Francisco permanently, taking a position with the city's family court system and living just 20 minutes away. The sisters had never been closer, bonded by their shared experience of fighting for Emma's safety and Sophia's recovery. You're glowing, Maya observed during one of their regular Saturday morning walks along the beach, while Emma collected shells and chased sandpipers. I feel good, Sophia admitted. For the first time in years, I feel like myself again, maybe even better than myself. The transformation was evident to everyone who knew Sophia. She had embraced her natural silver highlights instead of covering them with expensive color treatments. Her wardrobe had evolved from designer labels to comfortable, artistic pieces that reflected her authentic style. Most importantly, She had learned to trust her instincts and value her own judgment over external validation. Romance had entered her life gradually through Dr. James Walsh, Emma's pediatrician. Their relationship had developed slowly over months of medical appointments and casual conversations, built on mutual respect and shared values rather than passion and drama. James was recently divorced himself, with two teenage children who adored Emma and treated Sophia with genuine warmth. I love that he fell in love with me as a mother first, Sophia told Dr. Martinez during one of their monthly maintenance sessions. He saw me at my most protective and vulnerable, covered in baby spit up and exhausted from sleepless nights, and he thought I was beautiful. The contrast with Marcus couldn't have been starker. Where Marcus had fallen for Sophia's youth and potential, James loved her strength and wisdom. Where Marcus had been threatened by her independence, James celebrated her success and encouraged her ambitions. Marcus himself had changed dramatically during his incarceration. His letters to Sophia were thoughtful and remorseful, focusing entirely on Emma's well-being and his hopes for rebuilding their father-daughter relationship when he was released. He had completed addiction counseling, anger management, and financial responsibility programs, genuinely committed to becoming a better person. I wasted 15 years trying to be someone I thought I should be instead of figuring out who I actually was. He wrote in one particularly insightful letter, "Prison gave me the gift of time to face myself honestly, and I don't like what I found, but I'm working every day to become someone Emma can be proud of." The supervised visitations had evolved into a genuine co-parenting relationship built on mutual respect and shared love for their daughter. Marcus would never be Sophia's romantic partner again, but he had become a reliable father and even, surprisingly, a trusted friend. Emma's second birthday party was a celebration of their unconventional but loving extended family. James and his children helped with decorations while Maya coordinated catering. Even Marcus attended on a supervised release program, bringing Emma a handmade dollhouse that showcased his newfound woodworking skills. "Look, Mama," Emma squealed, running to show Sophia a tiny wooden rocking chair that Marcus had crafted for the dollhouse. "Daddy made this for Emma's babies." Watching her daughter play with toys made by her incarcerated father while being adored by her new stepfamily was surreal. But Sophia had learned to embrace complexity rather than demanding simple narratives. Life was messy and beautiful and unpredictable, and that was okay. As the party wound down and guests departed, Sophia felt genuinely content for the first time since before discovering Marcus's affair. Emma was healthy and happy, surrounded by people who loved her unconditionally. Sophia's business was thriving. Her relationship with James was deepening naturally, and even her co-parenting relationship with Marcus had found stable ground. But as she collected paper plates and birthday decorations from their garden, Sophia noticed an envelope tucked under one of the patio chairs. Her name was written in elegant script on cream-colored stationery, expensive paper that seemed familiar but out of place at a child's birthday party. Inside was a photograph of Victoria in prison, but she looked different. Her signature blonde hair had been dyed dark brown, and she appeared to have lost significant weight, but her eyes held the same calculating intelligence that had made her so dangerous. The message on the back was brief but chilling. "Did you really think prison could contain someone like me? I've had 2 years to plan our reunion, and I've made some very interesting friends. Emma is beautiful, by the way. She looks just like you did at that age." Sophia's blood ran cold as the implication sank in. Victoria had somehow obtained recent photographs of Emma, which meant she had surveillance capabilities despite being incarcerated in maximum security prison. The threat wasn't theoretical. It was immediate and credible. James appeared beside her, noticing her pale complexion and trembling hands. "Sophia, what's wrong?" She showed him the photograph and message, watching his pediatrician's protective instincts kick into high gear. James had heard the full story of Victoria's crimes and understood the danger she represented to their family. "We need to call the FBI immediately," James said, already reaching for his phone. "And we need to get Emma somewhere safe while they investigate." But even as they made the necessary calls and activated emergency protocols, Sophia realized that Victoria's psychological warfare had achieved its intended effect. The peace and security she had built over 2 years of healing had been shattered in an instant, replaced by the familiar fear and hypervigilance that had characterized the worst period of her life. "How is this possible?" Sophia asked Agent Sarah Kim, the FBI investigator who had led Victoria's original prosecution. "She's supposed to be in maximum security with no outside contact. Prison corruption is more common than people realize," Agent Kim explained grimly. "We're investigating several guards and inmates who may have facilitated communication and coordination with outside associates. Victoria is extremely intelligent and manipulative. She may have been planning her next phase of revenge from the moment she was incarcerated." The investigation revealed that Victoria had indeed been orchestrating a complex network of criminal associates from prison, using a combination of bribery, manipulation, and shared criminal interests to maintain surveillance on Sophia and Emma. She had detailed knowledge of their daily routines, Emma's preschool schedule, and even Sophia's relationship with James. "She's been patient and methodical," Agent Kim continued. "This isn't an impulsive act of revenge. It's a carefully planned campaign that she's been developing for 2 years. We have to assume she has multiple contingency plans and resources we haven't discovered yet." The family was relocated to a safe house while federal marshals coordinated with prison authorities to investigate how Victoria had managed to breach security protocols. But the psychological damage was already done. Emma didn't understand why they had to leave their beautiful ocean home, why strange men were following them everywhere, and why Mama seemed so scared all the time. "Bad lady wants to hurt Emma," Emma asked one evening as Sophia tucked her into an unfamiliar bed in their temporary housing. "No, sweetheart," Sophia said, trying to keep her voice calm. "The good people are keeping us extra safe while they make sure the bad lady stays far away." But privately, Sophia was terrified. Victoria's obsession had survived prison, prosecution, and years of separation. If anything, incarceration seemed to have intensified her psychological fixation and given her time to develop more sophisticated methods of harassment and revenge. Dr. Martinez conducted emergency sessions via secure video calls, helping Sophia process the resurgence of trauma symptoms and develop coping strategies for protecting Emma's emotional well-being during the crisis. "You've survived this before, and you'll survive it again," Dr. Martinez reminded her. "But this time, you're not alone and you're not defenseless. You have resources, support systems, and most importantly, you have the wisdom that comes from having faced down evil and emerged stronger." The breakthrough came from an unexpected source, James Hendricks, the prosecutor in Los Angeles who had been instrumental in Victoria's original conviction. He contacted Agent Kim with information that changed everything. "Victoria has been in contact with me," James reported. "She's been sending letters for months, trying to convince me that Sophia was the real villain in our college relationship. She's completely delusional, rewriting history to cast herself as the victim of some grand conspiracy." The letters revealed the depth of Victoria's psychological deterioration during incarceration. She had constructed an elaborate fantasy in which Sophia was a master manipulator who had orchestrated a decades-long campaign to destroy Victoria's life and happiness. Every setback, every failed relationship, every criminal conviction was attributed to Sophia's malicious influence. "She's not just seeking revenge anymore," Dr. Martinez explained after reviewing the psychological evaluation. "She's experiencing paranoid delusions with grandiose themes. She believes Sophia has supernatural powers to control people and events, which makes her exponentially more dangerous because there's no rational limit to what she might do." The final confrontation came sooner than anyone expected. Victoria had indeed been planning an elaborate scheme to kidnap Emma and force Sophia into some kind of twisted confrontation. But her growing delusions had made her impatient and careless. She was arrested while attempting to bribe a preschool teacher to provide information about Emma's schedule, carrying detailed maps of Sophia's neighborhood and surveillance equipment that violated multiple federal laws. Her prison associates were also arrested in coordinated raids that dismantled an entire network of criminal enterprises. But this time, Victoria's mental deterioration was so severe that she was deemed incompetent to stand trial. She was committed to a maximum security psychiatric facility where she would receive treatment while remaining permanently confined. The facility specialized in patients with violent tendencies and delusional disorders, making escape virtually impossible. "It's over," Agent Kim assured Sophia during their final debriefing. "Victoria will never be free again, and her ability to coordinate criminal activities has been completely eliminated. You and Emma are safe to return to your normal lives." But as Sophia prepared to return to their ocean home with Emma, she knew that their lives would never be entirely normal. Victoria's final obsession had taught her that evil doesn't simply disappear when defeated. It evolves, adapts, and finds new ways to manifest. Standing on their deck overlooking the Pacific Ocean, with Emma playing at her feet and James preparing dinner in their kitchen, Sophia felt the complex mixture of gratitude and vigilance that would probably define the rest of her life. She had survived betrayal, fraud, psychological warfare, and stalking to build a beautiful family with people who truly loved and valued her. The phone rang, and Sophia's heart skipped a beat, a conditioned response that might never fully disappear. But it was Maya calling with news that their mother wanted to visit and meet her granddaughter for the first time. "She's been following the news coverage," Maya explained. "She's proud of how strong you've been, and she wants to make amends for not being there when you needed family support." As Sophia looked out at the sunset painting, the ocean in shades of gold and crimson, she realized that Victoria's greatest failure had been underestimating the power of love to triumph over revenge. Every attempt to destroy Sophia's happiness had ultimately led to deeper connections, stronger relationships, and a more authentic life. Emma toddled over with a sand dollar she had found earlier, holding it up like a treasure. "Pretty, Mama. Very pretty. Baby girl," Sophia agreed, lifting Emma into her arms and holding her close. The future would bring new challenges, unexpected joys, and probably a few more surprises. But whatever came next, when they would face it together, a family forged in crisis and strengthened by love, ready to write their own story of hope and healing. And if Victoria's shadow ever threatened to darken their doorway again, Sophia would be ready. She had learned that the best revenge against those who try to destroy your happiness is to live fully, love deeply, and refuse to let fear dictate the boundaries of your life. The midlife betrayal story that had nearly destroyed her had ultimately become a testament to the power of resilience, female empowerment, and the unbreakable bonds between mothers and daughters. Emma would grow up knowing that her mother had faced down the worst humanity had to offer and emerged victorious, teaching her that strength isn't the absence of fear, it's choosing love and hope in spite of the darkness. As the stars appeared over the Pacific Ocean and James called them in for dinner, Sophia whispered a promise to her daughter and to herself. "We survived, baby girl. We more than survived. We won."